We're just having the last few people get in, and then we'll start. Um, Thanks to everyone for joining in. And we have a wonderful panel, great mix of absolute veterans from the industries who's worked from the 90s till the current trend. So should be an interesting panel. And we want to keep it in such a way that we'll have some discussions and then we'll open up for questions, right? And for the questions, don't hesitate to ask any questions. There's no stupid question, just ask. And that will help others as well, right? So I think we'll start, guys, with a bit of introduction. I'll go first and then I'll push it off to everyone. My name is Druhin. I have a studio in Pune. Me and Ranbir, we make games on mobile, PC, and console. And we have been making games for the last 17 years now. And yeah, I'll be the moderator for this wonderful panel. Over to you, Mayank, and then Rahul, and sorry, you can go.
Thanks, Druhin. My name is Mayank. I'm founder of Outscal. We are an educational platform that focuses on helping people land careers in the gaming industry. I've been a dev for 15 plus years, worked with a lot of global studios, both in India and US. And essentially what we are trying to solve with Outscal is the same problem that I faced back in 2009-10 when I was trying to make my entry into the gaming industry. There wasn't much community around, much support around, much guidance, mentorship. So fast forward 2018, when I decided to take my entrepreneurial plunge, that's the kind of problem statement that I wanted to work on. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Rahul Sehgal. I'm a game designer. Fundamentally, that's my skill, and I am the founder of Gamer to Maker, which is to some people I'll say ed tech, but technically it's actually an online game development school. We teach game design, game art, game programming, Unreal Engine, Unity, and we actually build projects. So we are also kind of an incubator where people join the program and they actually build entire games in teams from scratch, and then we help them get jobs, or they set up their own studios. And so my background is actually I'm from the Merchant Navy. At the age of 33, I said I don't want to sail ships anymore. I want to be a game designer, and I went off to Vancouver Film School, and basically since then I've been trying to help people make that same transition from something else into making video games. I did it in 1 year. I was navigating ships on the ocean, and a year later I was designing games. Like, it can be done potentially, and that's and I help other people to do that.
Hi guys. So my name is Joshi Mark. So a little about me. I come from the gaming industry. So I've been in the industry since 1996, 97. Part of the core team, and Rajesh Rao, the previous chairman of NASCOM, the IGDC, he was the business guy who'd go out and get work. I was the guy sitting internally, me and a colleague of mine, Shailesh, we were the ones who would do work. So we started off with Mission Impossible, moved on to Terminator 3, and worked on many other titles from Forza Motorsport to Toka Car Racing to Need for Speed. So we got to work on many titles. So 10 years into the industry, from 1997 to 2007-8, there were no good institutes training industry people, training people to go into the industry. So our goal was to, it was more of a passion. We moved out, set up IGA with Hanif. So we set up IGA, which is now Asian Institute of Design. So I did that for 5 years and odd. Then moved on to Moonfrog Labs. So Moonfrog Labs got us few successful game titles, Atin Pati Gold and Ludo and Bahubali and Alia Bhatt Star Life. Some of these games did fairly well. Then after that, at the moment, I have another studio called Super Huge Studios, Zarpi Labs. So we basically make casual mobile games, and that's what I do. And all along, academia is something that I love. Development is another area that I love. So putting these together and helping youngsters has been my passion. Yeah.
Thanks, Joe. I think I was not born when he started developing games.
I've seen the dinosaur.
Yeah, my name is Hanif Mohammed. I'm the CEO at Asian Institute of Design. Set up the first dedicated gaming institute in India. It was called as Asian Institute of Gaming and Animation then. We started with game art, with Joshi and myself, and another friend of ours, Sailesh. We were the co-founders of that. Since then, started with game art, flash games, game programming, now design. Done, we have so far 6,000 plus students have graduated from the institute. They're there in almost all the gaming hubs of the world. Now, been starting from a small institute, and when gaming was only, a gaming summit will have only so many people. So we used to recognize people with their, like I was saying, just the blazer or the coat that they were wearing, and say, okay, that's Rajesh, okay, that's, only so many people were there. Or when we went to major banks or asking for student loans, and 75% of my presentation will be over, and then I think I'll no questions, and I'll feel like I'm doing a good job, and they'll stop me and ask me, you're talking about gambling, right? From then to see a conference where you have 7,000 plus footfalls is amazing. And yes, now we offer in a completely different mode. We offer our programs in universities in partnership with the universities, where we take care of the entire delivery, content, quality assurance, the internships and placement of the students, where the university comes in as certification partners, and we were working with almost 10 universities at the moment. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Hanif. So for everyone, just some backstory. Back in 2007, 2008, when it was called... Can I take the risk? When it was called NGDC, you can hear me, right, at the back? Yeah, when it was called NGDC, we were about 15, 20 people in a room. That's it. That was the gaming industry.
What year was that?
2007 or 2008 hoga, Pune mein.
Right. I remember it.
Yeah, Hanif was not born, most likely, yeah. So...
I remember 2011,
Yeah.
the mixer the other day, the number of people at the entire conference was less than the people
Yes,
at the
absolutely.
mixer.
Exactly. So just to add on to what Hanif, it has grown in massive proportion from there to now. So my first topic would be for Mark, who has seen the dinosaurs, is you were one of the first people who created a curriculum for games, right? Back in 2006, I believe, 5-6.
Yeah.
And over an 18-year period right now in 2024, what are the big changes that you have seen in the structure, just in the curriculum side from your point of view?
Yeah. So at that point of time, it was a services industry, right? It was primarily services industry. So we would work for PC consoles, the early consoles. So we would create content for that. So since it was the services industry, the content of academia was to teach people how to make content for these PC console games. It would be 3D props to environments to characters. Thereby, we actually went, so the industry and the academia at that point, at least from what we worked, we would see what are people working on, the studios, what are they working on. So it would be services working with studios in Delhi, Dhruva Down, and a few other studios. What are they working on? Props for a racing game, or even small little barriers in the game, damage states for one of the games, Battlefield that we worked on at that point. All the damage states for a certain weapon or those were the academia elements. So our courseware was research on those elements. Picture references were very difficult to kind of get at that point because you did not have, so we had to buy many of these CDs which would come, and those are things that we used to teach students. Primarily, how do you get into a studio, and what would you do in a studio if you were in a studio? How do you start off? From references to this one. But we put it in a very academic pattern so that the whole courseware would eventually get them to be at a studio and start off from the, in a month they are into the studio. So our courseware was developed that way so that you grew into a studio as smoothly as possible.
And just adding on that, maybe Mayank, you can answer this. Do you think from an expectation of a studio, right, from a student, have you seen that also change and rise in terms of what is an expected outcome of a student coming out of, let's say anything, a diploma or a certificate or a degree, the time you have started? Is the expectation of a studio also, you think, has changed?
You mean expectation of the studio or the students?
Of the students from the studio.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point what you mentioned regarding, back in the day, majority studios were service focused, right? So naturally, if you had to break into those studios, you need to understand what is it that they're working on, what are the kind of skill sets they are really interested in, right? But today, I think, especially with the boom of, good sort of phones that are much more affordable, right? A lot of people are now getting exposed to games that are global in nature, right? Talk about PUBGs and Free Fires of the world, right? People are more excited about building those kind of games, right? So with the newer generation, what at least I am observing is that there is a product first mindset, right? A lot of people, when you think about and talk to them, younger minds, their aspirations are to either see their own games come to life, or work on games that they've kind of played, from some of these top global studios, not even just Indian studios, right? And that's the kind of projects that they aspire to build. As a result, expectations have risen multifold, right? They're no longer satisfied by the itch of working at a service studio, but they want to work at studios that are working on these ambitious titles, right? Be it from Rockstar working on GTA or to a new seed-funded studio that's trying to build the next competitor of PUBG or whatever, right? Or the next Fortnite, right? So as a result, the quality expectation in terms of the skills that are needed have also risen tenfold, right? So when we talk about especially our forte is programming when it comes to design and all, I'm definitely not the right person to talk to. But when it comes to programming, right, like when you look at these studios that are hiring and are trying to build a AA game for mobile in India using Unreal, right? Their interview process looks very similar to how even a Google interview process would look like. There will be like multiple rounds of technical interview. There will be a take-home assignment. They'll ask a lot of deep programming questions as well, right? So as a result, both sides, it's not even just the students, right? Students want to work on kick-ass projects, but then studios also expect top-notch quality because they're trying to shake the world, right? Their aspiration is no longer that I'm going to just sit here and service a studio in UK or US, but actually take something from India, build from India for the world, right? And that's what I think on both sides of the table, the expectation has risen. And as a result, the level of the skill that is needed needs to kind of level up there as well, right? A lot.
Absolutely, I totally agree. I mean, I think the quality that we used to see when we hired students back in the day and now, and thanks to all of you actually, it's much higher, right? It's much better on the art side especially, as well as programming. It's much better on that side. And Hanif, I'll come to you next, is just the main core topic for today on the gig economy, right? And for everyone else, I think, are you all aware what is a gig economy? Raise your hand if you know what is a gig economy. Okay, great. So nobody knows. So gig economy, if I summarize, it's basically can come under anything that's short-term, temporary. It could be freelance. It could be anything. So, and there are a trend that we are seeing from a student point of view also, that they want to do this short-term kind of experience level things, either at a studio, Indian or international, or they want to experiment what the industry is about. So my question to you is, like, from a student point of view, do you think the right time to do this kind of freelancing is when they are doing a course, like a degree maybe in the 3rd year, 4th year, or it doesn't matter, maybe even after they finish it off, they can still do it just for the experience of it, because they will know how the industry works?
Yeah, I mean, like they were mentioning, the industry is really evolved, right? And everybody wants to make their own game at the minimum cost as well, right? Many of them are working on a shoe-strapped and first game and second game and third game till they get funding and things like that. So many are looking for these gig workers, and we also promote in the way we have structured is also that where we promote a lot of internship or project-based or even freelance. It could be, let that be a faculty or let that be a student. We promote that because maybe something very small. You need to pick a lot of life skills as well, right? That's very, very important when you go, just not the technical aspect. Maybe even if nowadays even, I mean, no studio looks for a certificate as such, whether you're a master holder, you're a PhD holder, whether you're as long as you have the skills, you have a good portfolio, they pick you. And if these things can contribute to your portfolio, you're able to get a better job in a settled studio is also much better. See, most of what is required, maybe you could teach, or the learning bit can be done in about a year, in a diploma format as such. But then you go into the industry, try out different. Like we even promote not only just gaming, we should even take up creating videos, animation videos, and things like that. You keep experiencing yourself with multiple projects, and then that's where your maximum pick is going to be, rather than just read something or just watch something. And you nothing like getting a experiential learning, and everything is moving. Even in education, everything is moving from pedagogy to hedagogy. Pedagogy is teacher-led, whereas hedagogy is more to do with self-paced learning, and the learners is the focus as well. For all this, this gig works. The students does get, many cases I've seen the faculties getting freelance work, which is highly recommended, because they need to be connected with the industry, and they would use even the students to do some aspect of it, and that's also again one way promoting this. And I feel it has to be done, and it has to be continued for better development for themselves and even for the studios as well, to try out the first few games as such.
Yeah, perfect. And I think many studios, because as Mayank was saying, we are seeing a shift from that core services to a lot of product-based companies, where they're trying to build prototypes and they don't have enough funds to build a prototype. And the easier way is to hire gig workers, right? And if we have a pool of gig workers in India who are skilled either on the programming side, art side, design side, the better for the entire ecosystem. Which brings to us a very interesting point, which I'll come to Rahul for, is again, I know most of you would know it because you follow Rahul and others, is what is game art? What is game design? Are they same? Is game design game art? Rahul, over to you. Please enlighten us and let us know what it is.
Okay. So, anybody here? I'll ask the audience, right? Who knows the difference between game design? Okay. Who thinks that game art? Okay, I'll rephrase that. Sorry. Who is confused between game art and game design? Everybody's confused? Okay. So I'll try and break it down really fast. So fundamentally, game development is a field in which people develop games. Right now, there is actually a difference between abroad and in India. So in India, okay, let's talk about abroad first because they started first. Game development is anybody who is part of the development of a game. Could be a designer, a programmer. I'll explain the roles later. Designer, artist, programmer, tester. Even I would say a product manager. Everybody's a game developer because they are part of a game development studio. They're developing games, right? Within that, there are several disciplines. I will start with designer because I'm a designer. So a designer is the person who fundamentally needs to define what is the game. What is the gameplay? What is the story? What do players do in the game? Do they walk? Do they run? Do they shoot? Do they jump? What are the controls of the game? What is the story of the game? What can the player do? What can the player not do? What is the user interface? How does the player feel? Is the player angry? Is the player sad? Is the player frustrated? And not only that, they manipulate the feeling. Basically, game development is, in a nutshell, you invite people into a universe and you manipulate their feelings to make them angry, sad, happy, whatever, from moment to moment. That's essentially what we do. We create a universe. The game designers define that universe. This is what you need to do. This is how things are going to be. This is how the structure of the game world is going to be. Now, game artists create whatever you see. If you're in a game, if you're looking at something, it's created by a game artist, right? The characters, the props, the skybox, the buildings, the plants, not the smoke that can be generated, but basically anything visual you see in a game is created by a game artist. So within the specific context of the game industry, design is different. Now, if you go outside the game industry, ये तो designer है, artist है, character बना रहे हैं, designer, which is very confusing. I know, it's not your fault, right? And also another thing, in India, when they say game developer, it means game programmer. That is another point of confusion.
Yeah,
Okay?
absolutely.
Right. Now let's come to game programming. The game programming, they are the guys who take all the fundas of all the airy-fairy stuff of the game designers and they actually build it. They write the code which says, okay, if I'm going to press a button, the space bar, the player is going to jump so high. They implement everything that the designers, or the rules that the designers have been created, the gameplay, the functionality is actually created in the game engine by the programmers. So fundamentally, these are the three different roles, and a lot of people don't know this. There's a lot of confusion about this, right? And I think half my content is basically just clarifying all this stuff, which I guess I get asked 100,000 times, and it's okay, I'll answer you. That's why I started my YouTube channel, because people used to ask me, I said, dude, I'm so tired of asking questions, can you just watch my video, please? Which is basically how I started on YouTube.
Perfect, perfect. So, oh yeah, Hanif.
Just to add, game artist, game designer, game programmer.
Right.
Yes, yes, and thank you, because that leads it to my next question, which might be very useful for everyone. Let's say as a student, right, and they're going to a studio, let's say it's a studio. What should be in the portfolio, right? I'll start with game art first, then programming, and then game design, because sir, everybody's confused. Game designer ka portfolio mein kya hona chahiye, right? So, Hanif, from you.
I'll pass that question because the game art is...
So he can answer for studio as well as institute.
So, okay, what happens is many a times when people come and show you their portfolio, it's very aligned to what, just a character there or things like that, right? It could be a 3D game or a 2D game. It could be different genre of game. So what are we looking for, right? Firstly, when a youngster comes to meet you at a studio and says, I'm looking for a job, first thing is, how much does he know of the game life cycle, right? How does an idea become a narrative to a concept to content which goes inside the game, eventually becoming a business which drives retention, which drives engagement, and drives monetization. How is this happening? So does this person understand the whole life cycle of a game? And that's very important, right? As a student, it's good to kind of know the whole area. So that's the first thing we look for. Secondly, what is your area of expertise? And is it just that area of expertise, or do you know your adjacencies of, do I know what the designer has done? Do I know how does it become real in, when a programmer has to kind of take this character and put it in? Is it real? How does your character or your environment show up eventually in the game? What is its role in the game? These are most important things that we look for. The capability of research and how much they would actually delve into deeply to kind of create that content. These are very important, while the second part is creating the content itself. So when you create the content itself, what are the sensibilities that the person would have in terms of colors? As an artist, are the art principles and elements right for you to kind of bring this to life in the game? Where is it going? Is it on a phone, or is it's on a big screen? Is it a console game or a PC game, or is it, everything differs because your lighting, the way you would draw a character or environment is very different from this. So these are things that we will look for. But most importantly, knowledge of the whole life cycle of a game, because that's the key that will make you a better game industry person. It's not about just being a texture artist or an environmental artist or a character artist. It's about knowing the whole thing and knowing your subject really well.
Perfect, perfect. Mayank?
So I think from programming side, or rather from more generalistic side, one thing I feel majority people kind of get wrong when they're in their internships, that job search process, is understanding the kind of companies that you want to work with first. People don't often even define this. It's like, oh, today I'm going to sit on LinkedIn for 2 hours. Whatever shows up, I'm just going to randomly hit apply, right? And that takes them in a very wrong trajectory, right? Oh, this company, I was just literally outside the room talking to a student who asked me a question regarding, should I start learning level design, level design, but I'm a programmer and I'm doing multiplayer. I'm like, why do you even want to do level design? Oh, this company I interviewed with actually asked me, can you do level design as well? So now I'm started thinking about, do I do level design? That's just one company, right? And somebody random you don't even know, right? There's like, the person did not even remember the name of the company, right? So no offense to the person, but what I'm trying to say is that this happens a lot, right? So people forget that, okay, this is the kind of company that I want to work with. And then you can start thinking about how do you tailor your portfolio to that kind of companies and the kind of process that you want to follow. And this applies to every discipline, right? It doesn't matter what kind of a role. Even if you're going for a community moderator, right? What kind of company do you want to work for? Which will tell you what kind of communities they would have, and so on and so forth, right? So a little bit more specific when it comes to programming. Let's say you have a skill set in Unreal and blueprints only. You have no knowledge of C++. Can you figure out that there are these 20 companies that you could apply to? I would actually start this in the reverse way. Rather than thinking, oh, I need to have this on my portfolio, I would look at what are the companies that I could apply to eventually, maybe 1 year from now, 2 years from now. But at least have that thought process in mind. There would be more companies like that will come up in the next 2 years, but at least have that clarity and say what kind of things are they looking for when people apply to them. And then deconstruct the process from there, right? So like you were saying, like the understanding of the full potential pipeline, right? Understanding their own discipline, understanding their adjacent discipline. If I'm a programmer, I'm supposed to talk to a designer. I'm supposed to talk to an artist. So can I show that I took some art samples, whether they're free samples, and actually integrated in a prototype that I built, right? I can, as a programmer, show a good working prototype of a game with simple boxes and cubes as well, which is typically what happens in the pre-production phase of any game, any prototype, right? But if I can actively integrate art, right, then that shows to the company that I can not just code a game, but I can actually work with the artist to integrate something as well, right? So work backwards from what is it that you need, or which kind of companies you're going for, what kind of projects they're working on, and then think about how you construct your journey of what to throw in on your portfolio. The biggest problem with programmers is they'll have a mix of HTML games, Unity games, and Unreal games, and they'll usually have a Play Store link, right? Or here is my game, go download its exe file from a G Drive location and play.
Yeah, yes.
Right? Google Drive.
Google Drive portfolios, please.
Avoid, right? When somebody is reviewing your application, they don't have freaking time in the world to download your exe. What if they're on the Mac, right? They don't have space on their phone to download your APKs. Like, make it really simple for them to quickly check out your project, which is for programmers, GitHub, number one, right? No doubts. Always show your code, right? Your code comes first. Whether it's an Unreal project, whether it's a Unity project, whether it's an HTML5 game, does not matter, right? Show your code. And just focus on whatever you have showcased is the best freaking thing. I've seen 5 pages of resumes, but those have absolutely crappy games, right? That tells me that I don't even want to interview this person, right? Show me one game, right? If your one-page resume has one game that is well polished, has good technical depth, I'm talking about programmers specifically, right? Has good technical depth, that's all that matters. The engineering manager or hiring manager would probably have time to look at only one project, and based on that project, they're going to form a perception of whether this person is worth considering for an interview round or not, right? For a technical round, because technical rounds take a lot of time, and they usually go for multiple hours as well, right? So showcase one project. If you have multiple projects, you're applying to a company that's doing Unreal, customize your resume. Only throw in the Unreal project. Don't show in 20 other mediocre Unity projects. Those can stay on your website, right? Those can stay on your GitHub profile, but don't put it in your resume. In your resume, highlight your best thing forward, and always kind of customize the things that you're doing, right? Customize it to the company that you're applying to. Unity company, show your Unity project. Unreal company, show your Unreal project. C++, you're applying to Rockstar, show your C++ projects, right? Don't focus on making the full GTA.
I totally agree. And one of the things that you mentioned, we have profiles where they'll give 20 links to hyper-casual games, and all of them look the same. There is no code access. So your first impression, that person could be a good programmer. You don't know, but the first impression that you get is, what is this, right? So very important point that Mayank is mentioning. And Rahul, sir,
Right.
again.
So, firstly, just a quick show of hands. How many of you, A, are specifically programmers or want to go for programming? Please, can you put up your hand? You know?
Outscal से है क्या सब? हाँ.
Okay. How about someone, anybody who's specifically into art, game art? Anybody here interested in game design now that I've explained it? Anybody here who doesn't know? Not sure? Okay, at least one hand. Right, right. So this is for all of you, right? Now, putting you to the mindset, you have a portfolio. You want people to see it. You're sending your portfolio to someone. I'm the person reviewing your portfolio. And trust me, HR, with all due respects, doesn't know portfolios. Usually the portfolio should be seen by someone from the team, the technical, game design, game art, programming. We have a very short time. Okay, first tip, always put a portfolio link in your CV. So I want to see your CV, I want to see a nice bright thing, I want to click on it, and I want my browser to open your portfolio. Don't make me copy paste a browser thing into my portfolio. That's top tip. When I go to your portfolio, immediately I want to see your work. Please don't put a big picture of yourself and tell about your childhood stories and how many games you played and how passionate you are, how awesome you are. We don't care about that. We don't want to see a picture. We want to see, hi, I'm so and so. I'm game programmer, game artist, game designer. That's who you are. Next, project. A picture of your project, platform, Unity, what you did, what platform it is. I did this. Short blurb, right? And because first, we want to see who you are, what content you have, what you've done, what kind of games you made. Only if we pass that stage, no, if you see story, your portfolio is gone. We want to click, if you're interested, oh, this is interesting, I want to know more about this project, and this person did this. Then we will click on that, and then we want more information. We want to see a trailer, we want to see a show reel, we want to see information about what you did, what your learning was. And if you want to go into more depth, now this is where I talk about design. So fundamentally, what do we want from a game designer? We want analysis. A game design job is 70% documentation. Right? A game designer has a game ready in the head. Like a game designer's thing is you close your head and you're already playing the game. And then all that information has to be transmitted to the artists, programmers, and they have to transmit that information. That is done primarily through documentation. I don't care what people say, documentation is dead. It is not. It's very much alive. You have to make a document with everything in it. So your spoken, written English should be decent. A game designer makes documentation. And also problem solves. A game, whenever it is made, the first version is completely broken. A game designer has to be able to see a first version of the game. This is broken, this works, this is broken, this works. And analyze and improve it. Right? So a game design portfolio is fundamentally an analysis of your problem solving skills, your process, what you saw, how you improved that game, how you work with other people. So put videos, put an explanation, and definitely a development log of how your thinking process is, how the game looked, how you improved it, how your first version of the user interface was, how the controls were, what you did, right? That process of your thinking has to be explained in your portfolio. It's a complex portfolio to make, I'll give you that. Creating a game design portfolio is not an easy task, right? And I have videos on that, so if you know me, you can actually see specific videos on how to specifically create a game design portfolio. Okay, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, thanks, Rahul. I'll just open it up for questions. If we can have a couple of questions, anybody, then we can just pass on the mic.
To Rahul, you mentioned about game design. I wonder what are the opening positions for students who have learned this for and want to apply for game design, and in the initial years, I don't know whether they are able to work on game design in any studios where already there are game designers really at the, I think maybe at the senior level.
So that's a great question, ma'am. So fundamentally, we have a, as a Houston, whatever, we have a design problem in India. About 5-10 years ago, most game studios used to be basically programmers and artists, and they used to view game designers as just these dudes in shorts and slippers that turn up and watch YouTube videos randomly. It's like, why do we need to pay a designer? We can do this stuff ourselves, right? Now people are like, okay, no, we actually do need designers. So earlier on, it was all the big studios that were actually investing in game designers. Now, pretty much most studios who are competent and are going somewhere are like, okay, I think we need a game designer. So there are a lot of entry-level positions opening up for game designers, even in small studios. So that's no, I don't think that's a problem, because game design, the awareness that game design as a discipline is actually quite required is spreading. And now we have studios mushrooming like crazy, and most of them are like, okay, we need to at least hire a kid that knows something about game design. In fact, there's a shortage, I would say, of game designers, a huge shortage of game designers.
I think I'll just add one more thing here on this question, which applies to almost all principles, right? When what I talked about decrypting your sort of working backwards from the process, right? It goes for everybody in every role, right? Figure out what kind of job opportunities exist in any career field that you're trying to go for, right? If you want to become a rocket science engineer or something, are there enough opportunities in whichever geography you're based in, right? And that starts with a simple Google search, LinkedIn search, jobs platform search, right? So like even for like your question was specifically for design, but it applies broadly for everyone. Just figure out where there are companies, like Rahul said, a lot of companies have now opened up junior roles because they know and understand the importance, especially if they're product focused companies, right? So start from there, figure out what kind of opportunities, who's hiring, what skill set do they need? Are they hiring at an associate level, entry level, internship level? And that will help you figure out what the right trajectory is. And that broadly applies to pretty much everybody.
How do game designers work and fit into large studios? Because you explained how the opportunities are with new startups, obviously that are there. But how do game designers actually fit in at the entry level into large studios where there are already possibly 2-3 senior game designers?
I'm sorry, can you rephrase? I didn't understand completely.
See, you explained about the fact that there's a shortage of game designers with lots and lots of new studios opening.
Yes.
That's taken.
Yeah.
But there are also large studios which already have established game designers or game design department. So how do the entry-level game designers fit in, and what is the kind of role that they have?
Right, great question. So let's talk about big company. Like I would say when it comes to game design, the really aspiring studio would be Electronic Arts, right, in India. And other companies, Zynga as well. Big studios, I mean, simple teams of like 15, 20, 25, 30 designers. There's a lead designer who is the boss, and then depending on the company, under them, there will be several disciplines. Like there will be somebody who's doing free-to-play design for free-to-play games, somebody who is doing level design, somebody who could be doing mission design, somebody who could be doing user design, somebody who could be... So there are several design roles within game design, and the larger companies, they would actually have several different openings for all these specific roles. And even within these specific roles, there would be like a lead UI designer, and there would be assistant designer. So normally what happens is when game designers enter the system, they are generalists. They pretty much know everything. Then they're working on a game, they say, okay, for this game, you're going to be doing the system design. So then they kind of start specializing in systems design, because it's a very wide field, like, you know, game art, game programming. There are a lot of nuances in it. So as a game designer, you enter, you start doing one thing, and pretty much you're like, okay, this is something I like doing, and then you become a level designer or a systems designer or a UI designer. That becomes your specialty.
Just to add to that, what happens in studios is, for example, Zynga and the bigger studios, you have intern level, wherein you get in at the lowest level to buddy, you know, you work like a buddy with a senior designer. So you work with them through it. So the life cycle of the game, you would kind of join them and work together. And the next one, you're given a better opportunity. For example, at Zynga, some years ago, a good friend of mine, Mr. Mark Skaggs, who designed Farmville, he would actually observe the junior interns and say, this guy, I think, has more potential. We need to back him up. And soon, you know, this chap would eventually, years on, would be leading a studio. So start off as an intern. And another thing when it comes to intern, and especially, you know, any part of the game, you know, all the profiles, go in even if there is no salary. join for free if possible, because the first question many a times is, how much do I get paid? And the interviewer is like, okay, next. So, get in, impress the guys, and then you can move on. But lowest level is the intern level, I would add.
Good afternoon, guys. So my question is mainly for Druhin sir and Mayank sir. How much does a master's degree help in the skill development and career growth as a game programmer?
We should have started the session on that question.
Started the session with master's degree.
Oh, man. Okay. Do you want to go first? I might go.
This layer I have to control. So I have done a master's in game tech. I'll tell you my rationale, right? So when I did a bachelor's in computer science, right? And after that I wanted to do in games. I did some freelance gig work back then also. But I had no idea what, as I said, the life cycle of a game is. What happens in a console game development, in a PC game development. That was one major reason, right? And at that time, there were not many institutes. Now we have multiple institutes also of game programming coming up, right? Still it's less compared to game art. Game programming still less. So one was to just learn. Second, for sure, for me was to how do I work in the UK, in the Europe, right? Because if I did a degree from there, it was slightly easier to get a job at that point of time because I did it from Scotland and I was talking. There the indie scene exploded at that time. So while I was doing the degree, because wo karna tha degree, because based on that I got the student visa, I did internships in multiple companies. That was the main intention because I wanted to work in multiple gaming companies to understand how the ecosystem is, to understand the entire pipeline of a PC game or a console game. What helped was some of the professors were like Henry Fortuna, the guys who created the architecture of PlayStation. So when they teach, it was brilliant. So that was my rationale for doing masters. Now, if you ask me, I think the quality of education in India on the game tech, thanks to guys like Mayank with Outscal and others as well, game design with Rahul, has improved drastically on the tech side or design side. Now I am not so sure if you require a master's in game tech based on what you are looking at, but I'll let Mayank speak first, and then you can counter what I'm saying. Yes.
Yeah, so I have also done masters. Just so my masters was in 2012, so almost 12 years ago, and I went to US. I took a shit ton of student loan, which I was still paying at the start of COVID. I think 8 years later. So today, if you ask me, TLDR answer is don't do it. The only reason, and this is an exception, the only reason why you would go for a master's, and this is the answer is very strictly for Indian context, right? This does not apply if you are coming from some place in Europe and trying to think of go to UK or something, whatever, right? If you're in India and you're thinking of should I go to UK, should I go to EU or US to do a master's, don't do it unless that is buying your scholarship or buying your visa. Right? You have eventual plans that I'm going to go and settle there, right? There is literally no other option. It's fine. So I think the only option is that if you're looking to buy your opportunity to stay outside, right? Then that's the only sort of cleanest way of doing it, right? But if your goal is that I want to work in this industry, I want to gain experience, maybe eventually start my own studio, it is not a cost-effective ROI on doing a master's degree as of today. I went outside, I did some experience, worked in San Francisco, worked with some top studios, eventually came back, still 8 years later was paying my education loan, right? So the ROI is not justified, especially with the rising cost and if you plan to do come back, right? And the way the game industry is exploding both globally and specifically in India, I think, like I meant, I at least get that sense, majority have aspirations of doing something of their own, right? Think of that, right? If you're planning even maybe 5 years later, I want to start my own studio after I get some experience, right? You will be surprised at how much of BS there is if you want to start as an immigrant and open up a new studio in an international country, right? Most places you can't even register a company, right? In India, you could take a year off, live with parents, have minimum expenditure and start your own company to play around and see after getting some experience that what is it that you want to do, right? Before starting Outscale, I was on a 2-year failed ventures. I had 2 failed gaming startups before this, right? But I could do that because I was in India, right? I could register a company without having a local immigrant, local person there registered as a co-founder, even if they were just on paper for the legal formalities, etc. Right? A lot of people don't sort of figure those aspects out. So, masters from a financial ROI, hell no. Masters from the perspective of that you want to just buy your way into living into a foreign land and settling there permanently, sure. That's the only reason why that ROI would be justified today. With access of Discord communities, like he's doing awesome in his YouTube channel and so many new access to educational resources. You can frickin' do a CS 50 course of Howard sitting at your home with a laptop, right? I don't care whether you're sitting in Chinchpokli or Patna, you can still do that course. You don't need to go pay Howard $200,000 for that education. You have access to that, right? It's about whether you are able to capitalize on those opportunities because those opportunities are global now, right? So that's why the ROI is not at all justified. But actually, shameless plug, I'm doing a session later today with a bunch of founders. It's called No BS. So I think this question was probably an ideal one for that one, where you can ask the founders whether they are interested in hiring people with a master's degree or not, because that will tell you probably something.
Can I just add to that?
I'll just one point. So just answer your questions. We also have people who don't even have a degree and diploma.
10th class pass, 12th class pass,
Yeah.
60 lakhs a year in the game industry. Nobody is going to ask for that piece of paper. Okay, disclaimer. Degree helps because a lot of big companies need to check the box of graduation, right? And you can't move abroad, you can't. So graduation generally, even if you get 33% pass, chalega. Tick box ho gaya, graduate. You can be PhD in whatever and you won't get a 10,000 rupee job. So generally game industry mein people care about skills, not about qualification.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, most of whatever they said is absolutely right. In the initial years when someone want to do a game development program, I used to advise them, you do this diploma, you'll get the job. Parallelly, when that time online education wasn't there, so I used to tell them, take a distance in anything that you want to do. Let it that be BA English from Marakkarackayil University, parallelly do it. By the time you finish the degree, you have 2 years of experience, and you'll get your ECNR stamp, or you'll get a better bride, because wedding you require a master or a bachelor degree. But again, it is purely what you want to do. What is your goal? Tomorrow you want to get into education, you want to teach, there is a requirement of masters, PhD and things like that. So yes, it's absolutely up to you all where you want to take your, like how you develop your portfolio is where you want to take your career. Yes, you want to do few years in the industry, then you want to get into education, you want to get into research and things like that. Yes, then you need a master's. Yeah, it is purely dependent on how you want to shape your future. Others, I wouldn't say it as, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Hanif, for bringing that. So one more point there. So I taught for a couple of years at a university in New Zealand. I could not get the job if I didn't have a master. So it worked out, but I did not plan, oh, I'll do this master's, then 5 years down the line, I'll do that. But what Mayank said, I can't add anything more. He's perfect. That's my take, right?
I wanted to ask a question from Mayank. Actually, I want to ask, how do you see the role of a programmer evolving with the trends of like generative AI and AI coming forward? So, how should a programmer evolve to that?
Why are we asking all the hard questions at the end?
So we had this question planned, but I thought I'll ask this question at the last because I don't know if it will end.
Okay.
So I'll come back to your question. Let's just have 2 last questions if possible. One at the back. Yeah.
There's somebody in the back.
Just shout probably from there.
Yeah, just shout.
Mic then.
My question is, like, if we want to be good at something, we need to practice it daily, right? So there is a certain practice for game art, and there is a certain practice for game programming. So what is a good practice for game design? Because why I'm asking this question, right? Because there is a game idea, probably, and whenever we think about the idea, many things come into the mind. So the game will look like this. It will have this character. It will just
Right.
How can we be sure that it will work in the audience?
So you're basically asking about game design, right? So okay, so very interesting. So potentially a game artist, a really good point. A game artist can sit down by himself or herself on the computer and create game art, right? You can make beautiful game art. A game programmer can potentially sit down and program a game completely by themselves and displace their skill. So getting a job means you have to display your skill as an artist or programmer designer. Game designer have a problem. Game design by definition is talking to people, getting people to do things. So if you want to show your skills as a game designer at a very low level, if you want to do a solo stuff, you can do a deconstruction. You can deconstruct games. You can show your understanding of other games by deconstructing the design principle of those games. Next, you can actually create documentation for a game that doesn't exist. You can create a beautiful document, game design document, concept document for a game that you have a plan for. Another way of doing it. But if you want to show genuine, like what would impress me, get together with an artist and a programmer and make a game. Make Flappy Bird with shooting and pickups. And then go deep into your design process, explain how you built the game, explain all that stuff. Game designers have to show collaboration and iteration, right? That is, which is why in my course, I was like, if I want to teach design, I have to have people making games together in groups, which is the only way. So fundamental principle is the only way to learn how to make video games is to make them, right? That's kind of like the defining principle.
One more thing that has worked is, one is to get, if you can get another engineer, a programmer and an artist. That's one. The other one is paper play. Very early, do paper play, see if your idea works. Go down to your target audience. If it's, whoever it is, find your target audience and propose this idea first and do paper play with them. Do it with a few people. You would know if this idea works or not. Your iterative design will be much better.
I wanted to ask you one thing. The game, excuse me, I'm here.
Who, me?
I'm asking you.
Okay, sure.
So, game designer, can it be converted to gig? See, game design is required in a company. But if you want to do a gig, like a freelancing thing.
Nope. I'll tell you why.
Yeah, that's what
because see, you can actually do gigs for, game artists, very giggable. Sorry, I coined something. Right? Game designer, super ungiggable because game designers are fundamentally very, very involved with the IP and they understand the game at a very deep level. So, very, very few significant companies would hire somebody at an entry level for a short period because game design is actually a very deep thing, right? So, there's a caveat that at an entry level, almost impossible to do a gig as a game designer. However, when you get very senior, it becomes extra giggable because there are a lot of companies who can't hire designers, so you can get a job as a game design consultant. You can actually consult for all the little companies. So it goes from 0 giggable to super giggable throughout your career.
Thank you.
Hello.
I think last question, whoever.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah.
Last, please. And then we'll they'll be all around. You can just ask because otherwise there's a next session, there is lunch, everything gets delayed in equal proportions. Yes.
Yeah, sorry. I want to ask, like, it's on your personal POVs. Like, when an individual know that he gain enough skill, that he can go for a gig. Like, when you are in a market, you see someone with a good skill not getting a gig, and someone with a low skill getting a gig. So when an individual like start in a game design or game programming kind of stuff, when he will know that he should start looking for a gig at that particular time.
Take that, Mayank. Like, at what point do they know they are ready for doing a gig?
I think it's up to you, right? Like whether you really want to do gig or not, right? Gigs come with a very different mindset, right? Yeah. If a company is hiring you for a short stint, they're looking for a more of a transactional behavior, right? You have something to offer, a skill, experience or something. And like Rahul was saying, you can, as you go up in the experience level as a designer, you have let's say you worked on Farmville, you worked on some other games, etc. So now you understand how some of these games have handled social dynamics. So you understand the social design aspects of the game that make these games really, really widely popular. And if I'm today a founder who's building a mobile social game company, right, I would want to bring you in as a designer to help me build that kind of dynamics into my own game as well, right? But for that, you need to have a sellable skill essentially at the end of the day, some experience, something sellable that meets the need of what I'm looking for as well. So maybe I don't need you as a full-time person, especially if you're senior on, but I will bring in your expertise only for the required pieces, right? And you'll come in as on a retainer structure on a monthly basis or on an hourly basis, etc., right? But essentially, the tipping point is when you feel like you have something valuable to offer based on your previous experiences, not just high stuff mumbo jumbo, right?
Thanks, Mayank. Just, I think right now, Hanif, I think you want to add more points? Yes,
Just to add to whatever he's saying is like network. Keep networking, keep meeting people, keep showing what you've been done, what you have doing, what you have in store. Keep networking, come to places like this, come to other jamming sessions, games, whatever, and then you'll know whether you have something in you and you can start talking on those levels, right?
I think now let's do a final summarize of all, including I think the question he asked on Gen AI. So what are the future trends we are looking at on the ecosystem, including the elephant in the room, Gen AI, what's your view? So I think if every one of you can just summarize one line, starting from you, Hanif, maybe. And
yeah, Gen I is, I mean, AI is, everyone's talking about it, everyone's to try, everyone's worried, nobody knows. Sometimes it could be, before it used to be like, okay, AI is going to take over this. I feel AI is not going to be just another, if you look at game art as such, it won't be Photoshop or 3S Max or AI. It could be, AI is going to be there in every tool which we are going to use. Plus, yes, there's going to be, it's going to make things easier. More games would come out faster, which took about 6 months before. It takes lesser time to make a game. Maybe 6 months will maybe even cut short to 1 month and things like that. What we tried to do was we tried to get different, like, I mean, game artists and what do you call, engineering students from a different geography from the Middle East, and then we got another game students, again, game design students from another UK university to sit together and work on a level design. And this was basically done with a studio called Bombay Play, right? What one thing we really found was, yes, there was very marginal differences between the end output of what a engineering student got using Gen AI or an artist or from the design space as well, because yes, it was a collaborative work, but we could say that yes, lot of things can be done much easier, but yes, when it comes up to concepts and things like that, you still require your skills, and they could be, instead of, the life cycles of games also would come shorter, because there'll be many more games which would happen in from the same studios, and you can keep trying out different things and different aspects. It becomes cheaper, faster, is what I see that's going to happen with Gen AI coming in.
Quickly, so we use at Superhuge Studios, we use AI across all the departments. How do we use AI is as an aid to push your quality beyond boundaries. So we use it in engineering. We have autopilot kind of. So I did away with my lead engineer because we had AI reviewing his code. So that helped us. In art, we kind of get art to a certain point using AI. Now, the most important thing is you should know, if you're using Midjourney or DALL-E or whatever software that is, what are you looking at? What is your objective, end objective? What do you want? So you give the right prompts and drive towards your goal, and not just let it open. So you would say, this is the art style, this is the artist that I'm referring to, this is the game that we're looking at. So you're getting there. And eventually, what we do is we touch up the art, work on it beyond to get it to a certain point. But in terms of lighting and all that, it's just a starter for you, and then take forward from there.
Okay. So my take on this is that if you want to be in a career, forget about gaming. If you want to be in a career today which is not going to be affected by AI, open a pawn shop. Right? So you can't run. There's no place to hide. You can be, I'm not going to be in gaming. I'm going to go somewhere else. AI will catch up with you. You cannot escape AI, any career, right? So what is the solution? And we don't know. Like, I could make predictions. I could say, you know what, gaming is very high skill. It's never going to catch you. You're going to have to be. Earlier I used to say, and it's still valid, stay ahead of, be skilled enough that AI can't replace you. Okay, that's one thing. Be ahead of AI. AI will catch, but be ahead of AI. Be smarter than AI. Be more creative than AI. Right? Make AI your friend. Right? Don't be an enemy. Don't run from AI. Lean in. Lean towards it. Make it your friend. Learn how to use it in your job rather than be afraid and running away from it.
I think change is the only constant, right? Yeah. So I think for AI, the same thought process applies irrespective of whichever domain you're going in. We live in a capitalistic society, which basically means that if there is something that is going to help drive costs down, make things more affordable, more accessible, and a lot more people can access them, we are going to move to that state, irrespective of no matter what anybody says, right? So every time this kind of a magnitude of change has come in, people do often get scared, and the fundamental question is like, will I have a job, right? And the only thing that I can assure is that you will have a job if you, like Rahul was saying, right? You learn to adopt and figure out where does this aid in your process, whether it's in the design process, whether it's in the programming process, whether it's in the coding process, right? Whichever it is, right? Like figure out where does it help. Understand AI still does massive BS, right? It just spits out random shit as well. If anybody has effectively used any of the AI tools in their active, day-to-day workflows, right? It just goes all over the place, right? So you need to still understand what to use from it and what not to. It will continue to evolve and improve, but at the end of the day, you're still the driver, right? You decide where you want to take it and what kind of a vision you want to see to life, whether it's with the code, whether it's with art, whether it's with animation, whether it's with visual effects, whatever it is, right? So learn to make it as a tool in your tool set, like any other tool. Eventually, it's going to touch all surface area, probably even the pawn shop it will touch eventually, right? So I think maybe that's a 10-year bet you can say, but I don't know whether in 11th year it will still be there. So I think just make it a tool in your tool set, very much like Unity, Unreal, C++, etc. And eventually you will be fine, right? You can always, figure out a way to make it work for you rather than you working for it, essentially.
Perfect. I think that should conclude. Thanks to all the speakers. I think it was a lovely session. And thanks to all of you as well for lots of questions. Thank you so much.